a want-to-be competitor of Hnry had impersonated me to a government regulator over a period of 6 months and had baited a regulator into sending us a cease and desist by lying about some things that we were going to do. And so the regulator sent a sort of preemptive cease and desist to say, we've warned you on multiple occasions, you can't do this. But it was all masterminded by a want-to-be competitor of ours.
There becomes a time where I think you eventually teach your mind that problems are an opportunity to be solved. Instead of problems are a problem, you should be really scared, you should be worried, you should be fearful, you should have anxiety.
Some of the most successful people are people who found a thing that nobody else wanted to do and did it the best.
Here again with James Fuller, the CEO of Hnry. Mate, the last time we caught up was January 2024. And we got a bit of an insight as to your journey.
Yep.
It's gone really fast, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like, it's 8 years since we started the business, so it feels like it's gone in the blink of an eye.
Good on you. And how many customers are you up to now?
Across all 3 countries we operate in, we're over 60,000 now.
Wow. 60,000 customers. And so that's New Zealand, Australia.
And the UK.
When did you bolt on the UK? I feel like I've missed this announcement.
That was, we actually launched 2-3 months ago officially. We had a waitlist running for early this year, and then soon after we flushed the waitlist. It's now generally available and has been for 3-4 months, and so starting to build some traction, get some customers on board there. We've got, 8 members of staff over there already, so it's going great.
What is the team size in total for Hnry now?
Oh my God, I think it's 125, but don't quote me on that. I lose track a little bit. It's always a kind of a running joke of who actually knows the exact number. And it reminds me, many years ago, I was sitting down for a beer with Leighton and Martin from Sharesies, and we were sort of, I suppose, a year behind them in our journey, and they were having the same conversation of how many staff do we have, and well, how do we work it out? Is it the number of people on Slack? Is it the number of people who are full-time? Is it, do we count contractors? And I said to them, guys, how do you not know this? Like, surely, as co-founders of the business, you must know this. And then when someone asked me the other day, and I had the same answer they did, which is, I don't even know how to work it out. It's around 120, 130.
Well, I guess this is a part of your world, but it's also what I've been thinking about recently. Sometimes people ask me, okay, how many staff do you have? And I say to them, and have historically said, there's 8 of us in total. But now I've started saying, but in my wider team, there's probably about 20 people that I interact with every month in forms of, we might have full-time staff, but then we also have, contractors for editing, video, marketing, even some people support here and there. And you start going through, and I think Kiwi businesses are quite good at saying, as we know that stat, 70% of businesses are one person, a sole trader. But there are a lot of businesses out there that forget they have a number of contractors that are effectively part of their team, but our economy may just be that it's not big enough that we need a full-time marketer.
Sure. Fractional is huge at the moment. And, when you factor in whether it's kind of board members, advisors, kind of videographers, content creators, obviously given our business in the sole trader space, we employ a lot of contractors, a lot of freelancers, and you bolt all them on and that's easily another sort of 30, 40 people that at any one time will have working in and around the business. So it's kind of why it's hard to say exactly, but it's well over 110, 115 now, which is really exciting.
It must be crazy to think back to employee number 1 to now where you're at.
It is, and the weird thing is that neither Claire nor I were employee number 1 because we didn't pay ourselves first. So it's funny, we have these reminders that come up on our systems about whose work anniversary it is, and mine came up last month and said it was my 7-year anniversary, even though I've been working in the business for 8 years, and then Claire's wasn't at the same time. Hers was this month for her 7-year anniversary, even though she's been in the business for 8 years. So yeah, it's weird to think back to those times when we had staff that we employed, but we didn't pay ourselves.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've probably done 12 years work in that 8 years as
Does
well.
my face look like that? Yeah, I think probably does. I've probably aged since the last time I was on.
We're 8 years into Next Advisory, and I'm getting a haircut every couple of weeks to keep these greys away, but I'm just going to have to embrace it at some stage.
Sure.
There'll be people who haven't listened to the podcast who are new around here and basically like, yo, stop, slow down. What the hell is Hnry? Who is this guy? How did they have 60,000 customers? What are you talking about? So give us a little bit of the backstory of Hnry, the problem you solve, and the maybe last 8 years summarised.
Wow. Okay. I'll try and keep it short so we don't do the whole first podcast again. But Hnry is a service for sole traders that takes care of the entirety of their financial admin. So we give everyone their own unique account to get paid into. They get a debit card for their business expenses. And every time one of their clients pays them, we calculate, deduct, and pay the exact right amount of all of their taxes. and we pass the rest on to them. And so alongside that, we provide our own software for them for invoicing, for reports. They can do quotes. They can set up investment allocations so that they can pay into their savings and KiwiSaver. And then we're also their accountant. I think we got confirmation the other day we're New Zealand's largest accountancy by volume. And so we sort of package together accountancy, payments, and software in one easy pay-as-you-go package.
And all of this started because you were contracting and you were pissed off with sending these manual invoices, getting paid, and then wondering, how much is mine?
How much is mine, yeah. And actually, well, Claire was a contractor before I was. And I remember helping to do some of the admin, and you just didn't know how much money was yours and how much was for tax. And we had a friend of ours doing the books for us as an accountant, and he would say, "Oh, just put aside 30%." Yeah. And we would say, "Well, is that our tax rate?" And he would say, "No." And you go, "Well, how do we know how much money is actually ours?" And he said, "Oh, I'll just come to you at the end of the year, and I'll just let you know how much tax you owe. And if you've put away aside enough tax, then you'll be fine." And so you spend your whole year wondering, like, is this the right amount to put away? And then more often than not, 30% was way too much. And they say at the end of the year, "Oh, well, great, you get this, little pot that you've held onto." And you say, "Well, that's a family holiday. That's some renos. That's something I could have done with that money." And I was unnecessarily putting it in accounts on behalf of Claire and I. So yeah, it all started there of like just calculating our own tax rate so that we knew how much to set aside, and kind of snowballed when friends found out and said, "Well, actually, I could really do with that." And that was the sort of genesis for the business, was actually helping people understand how much money was theirs so that they can actually do valuable things with it, not just stick it in an account.
And we covered off a lot of this in the first podcast that we did. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, and if you search Hnry, H-N-R-Y, in the podcast catalogue, you'll find 2 podcasts specifically about the journey, and then also maybe going out as a sole trader and some of the things that they were seeing. But I don't want to waste the valuable time that we have together here in the 09, mate, because I know you don't get up here all the time, and probably fair enough at the moment too. But I want to dig into some of what you're seeing out there, but also interested, as you've gotten bigger, are the government and different people looking at you guys going, "Oh, well done," because you're doing everything that the country is telling, or the leaders are saying that they want to see, grow, and exporting and innovate and tech, and been going into multiple countries and whatnot. So are you getting any pats on the back yet?
Well, we've got a good relationship with NZTE, so New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. They've been super helpful for us kind of going overseas. I think central government, we probably get less of a pat on the back because we kind of give them a bit of a hard time. I think we've grown over the last 8 years to become the kind of foremost advocate for the sole traders of the country, those 400,000 Kiwi who earn some or all of their income independently. And they don't have a voice. They're not recognised on the census properly. And so part of my role these days, now that we have a fantastic team that does a lot more of the doing than I used to do, is to actually go and speak to government and talk to all sides of the aisle to say, what are the things that we can do to help sole traders, whether that's getting them to think more about their KiwiSaver, their retirement outcomes, or even just getting them more recognition from a private and public sector perspective, to raise awareness around what sole traders are doing, who they are, what they like, what they don't like. And so more of my time is spent, advocating for sole traders rather than maybe looking for those plaudits from government.
I think there's a perception that when you start something, you must know everything, and people look at people doing well and assume, well, they're cut out for that. Can you just talk to how much you've had to just figure this shit out as you go? Because surely 8 years ago, you didn't sit there and go, "Oh, cool, in 8 years' time, I'll be having to talk to the government about what they should be doing in this area."
It's for us, it was very much, it's just been organic, right? When we first started, we knew nothing about raising capital as a tech company. We knew nothing about, we'd never individually filed a tax return before we started this business. We're not from the accounting industry, very much from the outside. So I think there is such a steep learning curve, which is actually, how do you file taxes? How do you become an accountant? How do you, even down to the original idea being obviously, paying people's taxes when they get paid. And I can't remember if I've said this on the previous podcast, but we once went to a lawyer in Wellington, and we went to their office and sat down, and Claire and I said, "Look, we've got this business idea. We're going to pay other people's taxes on their behalf. Is that legal?" And this lawyer just looked at us and said, "I have absolutely no idea." And it's sort of, we don't know, if there's no precedent for people doing that. And so we had to just do it. And we just said, well, we will, ask for forgiveness and not permission. And so we went ahead and said, well, actually, let's do it. And it was only, this is back in 2017, it was only later you realize that actually there are regulatory environments that we could operate in that actually allow us to do that within parameters of the law. But when you first start, you don't really have that opportunity. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So it's been, I suppose, a constant learning curve for us in terms of, well, literally every day is a new day of learning, right? It's a constant evolution of my role and Claire's role, and we're very different people now than we were 8 years ago.
Yeah, I bet this has been amazing for your personal development for both of you.
There's been ups and downs, but there's
who
it's not all plain sailing. But yeah, I think the interesting thing for us is actually looking at how much we've grown in our own roles and our own professional development, and kind of reflecting on the sorts of things we come up against today, the things that knock our resilience versus the things that knocked our resilience in 2018, which is, very, very different things. And hindsight's 2020, but sometimes you look at it and say, man, we really cared about something completely insignificant back in the day. We really thought that was going to be the end for us. And it turns out to be, completely insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Well, what can you teach us in that space? Because from what I've observed, same thing for my journey, the things that you used to worry about, you do look back and go, why did I even spend time on that? And there becomes a time where I think you eventually teach your mind that problems are an opportunity to be solved. Instead of problems are a problem, you should be really scared, you should be worried, you should be fearful, you should have anxiety. And you stop that and you go, I can't live like that anymore. And you get to this point where you go, I can guarantee that I'm going to have more problems whenever I open my laptop, if I go on the phone, if I land off of a plane. There's always going to be a problem. It's about your ability to solve it. What can you teach people to get closer to getting to that point?
I think we've always found it. The fundamental part is to break things down into manageable chunks, and that's just a rule for life for us. Is actually when you've got a big problem, you've got something that needs to be resolved. If you go back to basics and go, okay, let's understand if it's a third party that's causing some kind of problem, let's understand the intent from their perspective. What are they trying to get to? If it's a regulatory problem, what's the intent of the legislation that's coming up? Or even if it's a problem internally, let's try and understand all parts of it and then just make a really simple step-by-step plan. Okay, what's the first thing we need to do? Let's identify all of the parts of our business that are impacted. Let's start to quantify how big a problem it is for those parts of the business. Yeah. And sometimes by putting things in perspective about actually how big a problem is this, it allows you to kind of break it down a bit further and say, well, okay, it's a pain in the ass, but it's not world ending, but it's having the wherewithal not to panic when problems come up and challenges arise in your business and being able to say, is it a bigger problem than other things we faced in the past? And there will always be things that, knock you back and you kind of not quite sure how to deal with it. But if you have that resilience and that perseverance to say, well, every problem is an opportunity to find a way to solve it and allow yourself to find creative ways to solve those problems, then actually you find yourself in a position you can then empower those people who work with you to do the same. Because early on, you're the only ones who can solve the problem for you. It's a two-person business. There's no one else there to bounce ideas off. But when you've got 100-odd staff, it's about empowering them to say, here's how you can solve problems and here are the methods you can take to go ahead and try and solve these for yourselves.
Have you got any moments that come to mind if I ask you a question like this, that you've received an email, you've received a legal letter, you've received something where the heart rises and you go, oh wow, how are we going to solve this one? Any of those hairy moments?
Yeah, well, I won't go into real specifics of it, but there was a less than savory incident where someone, long story short, we got contacted by a media outlet that said that they were in receipt of a cease and desist from a government entity and that it was directed at us. And, they wanted comment from me as to, what's the context of this cease and desist. So obviously we looked into it and we'd never received a cease and desist. We had no idea what this was. And, the journalist in question had said, you've got 24 hours to come back to me with a comment on what you think of this government cease and desist. And so that was one of those moments that we just thought, how are we going to work out what's gone on here?
So for people to understand this, because I've been through this too, it's not fun. You don't even know. You're just going about your day, doing your thing, happy as, and then you get a phone call and it's the media and they're like, we know this about you, and you don't even know at this stage. And then they're like, we want your comment on it.
They implied that we knew, which was the weirdest thing. They said, we have a copy of the cease and desist that you've been sent. And we obviously as a business suddenly dug in and we said, okay,
check spam.
Let's check spam. Let's check through. Couldn't find anything. And so we said to the journalist, hey, can you provide us a copy of this because we've never seen it? And they said, we can't provide anything. We've it's not our place to do it. So we went to the government entity and we said, hey, what's going on? And I will skip over the gory details, but it turned out that a want-to-be competitor of Hnry had impersonated me to a government regulator over a period of 6 months and had baited a regulator into sending us a cease and desist by lying about some things that we were going to do. And so the regulator sent a sort of preemptive cease and desist to say, we've warned you on multiple occasions, you can't do this. But it was all masterminded by a wannabe competitor of ours who was trying to kind of, besmirch our name in the market. And so over a period of 24 hours, we had to ourselves find out what had happened, speak to the journalist, speak to the regulator, unpick what had happened. And at the end of it, we actually we requested all of the emails that had gone back and forth between this individual and the government agency. And you could see that over a period of 6 months, they had just tried to bait this regulator by pretending to be me. And it was utter madness for 24 hours. But it's those things that you go, we've come through that. And then when problems come up and you go, is it as bad as that time when that person tried to pretend to be me to get a regulator to shut us down?
Yeah, that is next level.
Yeah. And but that's the problem. That's what you deal with is, people, whilst Claire and I will sit there and go, yeah, well, we're nice people in business. We're good people and we have values. Other people just see it as like, cool, I want some of what they have. What's the quickest, dirtiest way that I can take them down? And, we would just got into someone's targets and in some sites and they said, right, well, why don't we just pretend to be them and, talk to this regulator as though we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff that they won't like us doing. And, we had no knowledge about it. And in the end, we sort of, the whole thing went away. But it's just when you realize that...
It's distracting, right?
It's distracting. You realize that actually you're operating in a market where you are... you're a target once you become successful because people go, this is why there's a Trade Me clone started every 2 weeks in New Zealand. It's like they go, oh, that must be easy to do. I want a piece of that. It's just a website.
Yeah. Man, that's wild.
Too many of us signed up to a KiwiSaver plan without much thought. And signing up is great, but if you've never got advice before, you could be missing out. Your KiwiSaver account could become one of your biggest assets over your lifetime. That's why getting expert advice early and ensuring you're in the right fund is so worthwhile. Generate have a team of KiwiSaver advisors available to help. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no obligation meeting. They can even come to you. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
I guess I don't think you, to use the word identify as an entrepreneur from that last pod, right? It's like you're just a table at the idea and you scale it and it's helpful, but you're right, you then become a target, but you didn't want to have to deal with that. But it's almost like the entrepreneur, that for people who don't understand about the entrepreneur or the business owner, is it's always your problem. You could share that with your team and be like, man, this is really tough, and they'd have a bit of empathy for you, but they'd probably be like, well, are you going to solve it? And I think that's what the blessing and the curse about business and entrepreneurship is. You're forced to be that person. Everyone's like, well, what are you going to do? And you're thinking, I don't know. Like, we're going to have to figure this out. But you didn't set about like, oh, it'd be quite cool at year 8 if we could go on, a path of having to figure that out. It's always the stuff that you're forced to, but it actually makes you stronger.
Yeah, I mean, Claire and I always talk about the fact that, not as a reflection of our team, but just from a problems perspective, the shit rolls uphill. Yeah. And you are at the top of the tree. You're responsible for it. It doesn't matter whether you've got 2 people in your team or 10 people in your team or 100 people, you're still the top of the tree. You're still responsible. And as a director of the business, you're still legally responsible. And so actually those problems do come to you because sometimes there's no one else in your organization that feels empowered to be able to make that call. And so there's that weight of responsibility, but that a lot of what Claire and I try and do is actually, as I say, empowering our team to help, make certain decisions for themselves so that they don't have to come with everything. And it goes from the world where people just come to you with a problem and say, what do you think we should do, to a world where they come and say, this problem has come up. I've got 3 ideas of how to solve it. And then they might come back a bit later and go, I've got 3 ideas how to solve this problem. Here's the one I would favor. And then eventually you get to a point when someone says, there was a problem, I solved it. And we're not quite at that stage yet, but we're very close to the point where our team is, firing on all cylinders and can actually be empowered to come in and solve these problems in the same way that we would have done ourselves.
Yeah, I think it teaches resilience, right? Because I sometimes talk about, and I've been getting louder about it recently, where I've seen a lot of people complaining about rates, insurance, and their mortgage interest rates and whatnot. And I completely get it. I probably get it more than anyone, seeing it coming and trying to teach people like, hey, this is coming, whether you like it or not. But I sometimes say, like, spare a thought for the business owner who's dealing with a lease with a CPI as well, business insurance, and paying wages, and their own personal financial situation. It's not once, it's twice. But I don't think people grasp that. But also, you go through something like that in your business, it's a bit easier to go through when there's 2 or 3 people because you're sort of like, oh, okay, if all this winds up, that's not too bad. But when you've got 30, 40, 50 people, it's magnified by, well, I have to solve this because all of these people are effectively counting on me to do it. Have you, as it's gotten bigger, how have you coped with the stress that would bring?
It's been a learning journey, coping with the stress. I think it starts very early on as soon as you hire your first employee, particularly in our case where, sort of some of our earliest employees had left higher paying jobs to come and work for us on a shoestring to try and get this thing off the ground. Like they had, they'd walked away from, something that had much better benefits and other things to take a chance on us as founders. And we felt such a sort of duty to them to make this thing successful. And same with, doesn't matter how large we get, there's still a duty to make sure that actually this business keeps growing so that we can keep employing these staff who just do such a fantastic job. And we feel such a kind of responsibility over that. And so what starts off as a sort of feeling of stress, 8 years ago, hiring our first member of staff, now it just sort of, it's just a constant. It's not you don't necessarily feel stressed about it because your stress is more around how do we continue to deliver for them? How do we deliver a culture of an organization that they want to work in and that they want other people to come and work with us? Or how do we make sure that they're all taken care of mentally, physically, that we don't have people burning out? And, we're not the kind of business that want anyone to work 60-hour weeks and put their nose to the grindstone like that. And so there's a constant need for us to assess and reassess how everybody is. And it kind of, a lot of it, and Claire does a fantastic job of this, but a lot of it goes sight unseen. Like people don't recognize that actually there's so much that happens deliberately in the organization to make sure that people are taken care of and they're actually enjoying themselves at work. And it's, it is a constant evolution over time.
2 quickfire ones. Any jobs going at the moment?
Loads.
Okay. Yeah.
Loads. Yeah.
I thought there might be.
Hiring for about 20 to 25 people at the moment.
No shit.
Across engineering, customer facing roles. There's always jobs going, always. I think it's, just Google for careers at Hnry and you'll find our jobs page.
You'll message James on LinkedIn. He's really responsive.
Sunday mornings, yeah. It's my peak time for responding to LinkedIn.
Look, you might not be at the level you can message James yet, just the people listening out there. But what was the website if people do want to find it?
You just go to Careers at Hnry.
Okay, Careers at Hnry.
Careers at Hnry on Google and you'll find our careers page. Has all of the roles on there and job descriptions and everything else. When
you start to getting to 50,000 New Zealand customers, I'd estimate maybe it's higher. And given you're at 60 across the 3 countries, that is starting to become like 1 in 100 people. How often are you getting recognised by people that are like, oh, I use your software, or I'm a customer, or? It's happening a bit more often now. I was actually at my youngest daughter had a recital at her school during an open day, and I was wearing my normal clothes. I wasn't in my branded gear. Like my during the week gear is my branded t-shirt and hoodie and shorts and jandals. That's like every day, even through winter. Like I've just got to commit to the bit. Whereas I was in jeans, which is an unusual thing for me, and had my driving glasses on, which is the old man version of me. And a guy came up from the crowd at this recital and he said, hey, I just wanted to say, I'm a freelance musician. I've used Hnry for a couple of years. I recognized you standing in the crowd there, and I just wanted to say thank you to you and Claire because it's literally changed my life. And it was a very surreal moment. I think, it's one thing when I'm literally wearing my Hnry branding and people come up, but it's a very different thing that someone just recognized my face in a crowd and said, I want to go and talk to that guy. And it's just, honestly, it just gives you so much
motivation and juice for days and weeks. And I went back and I told all the team about it at our big all hands meeting with everyone there. And I said, that's the reason that we do this, is for people like that who just come up and say, this genuinely changed my life.
Yeah. And on that, I've been seeing a bit of content recently that really entrepreneurial people, a lot of them towards that 9-year, they start to get to the end of a season and it's like, okay, what's the next season look like? And there's this, I don't know if it's anecdotal data, but people often talking about around that 9-year mark. So you're at year 8. Does that resonate? And therefore, how are the passion and the motivation levels going? Like, you're a high energy dude and you've been going hard at this for some time.
I think there have always been moments in the 8 years, and we talked about this on the last pod, where you get those moments where your resilience is tested to such a state that you go, I'm not sure I can do this anymore. Yeah. And then something happens, and it might take a day or so before it happens, it might take a week or so, but something happens that just reignites those afterburners, right? And I think that's, every time either Claire or I or both has that little wobble of like, is this still for us? Are we still good at what we're doing? We still have that imposter syndrome of, are we still the right people to run this business? And then something will happen. And, most recently probably had something in the last week and a half where suddenly something crystallizes and you go, that's going to be huge for this business. And it's an opportunity. And even last night, case in point, Claire and I have good work-life balance, but we do have work conversations at home. And we're having this conversation and Claire pulled out, I think it was one of the kids' old maths tests or something, flips it over, just gets one of the kids' coloring pens and starts sketching out this thing. And she's like, it's this, and then it's this. And then I'll like riff off that and sort of draw a little diagram next to it. And I woke up this morning, it was still on the kitchen table. And so I went straight away, took a photo of it. And then I sat on the plane and just wrote I made a spreadsheet on the plane of exactly what this thing was, because I was so excited about what it would mean for the business. And I could tell with both Claire and I at the time that when we've had that sort of, lighting of the touch paper, it's like, that's it, there it is. Yeah. We might have had a few weeks in the last few weeks where it's been tough. Your resilience gets tested. And then something like this happens and you go, here we go again. Like, this is the motivation that pushes you forward.
I'm picking up, if there's a spreadsheet involved, maybe part of it is you're going to become a full-fledged accounting firm with a big tower and take on the big...
I want to get one of those hats with the green visors. Do you have one of those, the accountant's hats? No. You need one of those. That's when you know you've made it.
Okay, I'll get one for the background. Outstanding. Well, I guess, what is next for you guys, without giving away any, IP and getting ripped off by somebody who wants to try and copy what you're doing? But is it just full steam ahead, or are we focusing more on international markets and whatnot?
I think as I was saying to you earlier, there's so much going on. I think, we're growing really quickly in Australia at the moment, and that's a big growth market for us. The UK is very much our sort of frontier market. We're early on there, but we're seeing all of the signs we saw in Australia and New Zealand. And New Zealand for us continues to be just the best market. It is so good. We're sort of still growing in New Zealand, which is fantastic. I think we sort of have this combination of, we're going to grow internationally and locally, and we're going to keep acquiring customers, but we also have some really cool product stuff coming out. And that's probably the stuff I can't quite talk about at the moment. But, there's so much more that we're doing that's in the pipeline that I'm sure when it does drop, and it'll probably drop quite subtly, but there'll be a point that people go, I maybe didn't see that coming, or that makes sense, but I wouldn't have predicted it. And I think that's where we get excited, is actually about what we can do to further benefit our target market, those sole traders. What can we do to make them happier, to make their businesses more profitable, more productive, and that's really what drives us as a business. And so we'll build the product and we'll build the service that does that thing, and go and take it and try and make more people into sole traders so they can feel comfortable out there.
Well, I guess thinking about it from what I've seen too, is that it's gone from being able to send an invoice and then the tax piece to, people can now send the invoice, get paid quickly, which keeps money moving through the economy faster, which is a big advantage, or like a government wants to see that, money velocity. And then you've got like tax sorted, great, the ID get theirs, that decreases arrears, great, tick for the government again, they're very happy. And then for the customer as well, like you've solved those problems, but then you've got like automatic allocations to shares. I've seen that in action where someone said to me, this makes sure that I invest every week, and this has been great for me. I probably wouldn't manually do it. I would find something else to do with the money. And then the debit card as well, or the card, whatever terminology you use. Is there anything like, are those the core things that people love?
I think when it comes down to it, if I was going to be really honest, the thing that people really love is the service. Like everyone loves a good app. But the fact is, we're not pushing everyone's data into some AI learning model. We've got actual humans. So it means we understand our customers. We know who they are. We take them seriously as an individual. We don't sort of aggregate their data and try and just get something else to robotically solve the problem for us. And that's the bit that what I love is when you read our App Store reviews, when you read our Google reviews, people don't say, oh, this is a shiny app. They say, I love the team. They say the team is responsive. If I've got a question, they're right there on the app in my pocket. They love the service element that they get. And that's why we retain customers for years and years, because actually, we invest ourselves in their business. We like the fact that, we can be close to them. So I think there's a lot of push in the market where people are trying to AI everything. And it's like, that's great. And AI is fantastic for solving problems and saving time for some people. But the thing that it can't replace is that human connection where actually from your accountant, from whoever, you want to be able to talk to them and go, hey, what could I do in this situation? And not to just get some genericized answer back. So yeah, I think there's primarily people love the service, the app and the payments and the fact that you can receive online payments and international payments and the fact that you have this great account with a card. That's all a means to an end, right? I think that's, the thing people like is actually there's peace of mind. It's a human business. There's peace of mind. There's security. There's just confidence that it's getting done. And it's the opportunity people get to go, do you know what? I can go and focus on my business now. I can go and actually grow my business. I can earn in different ways. And I'm not beholden to having to be an admin monkey in software all day because it all does get done for them by our team.
You might know, but there's 400,000-ish sole traders in the country, right? So for those who don't understand, sole trader would be Luke goes out as an accountant on day one, hasn't set up a company and decides to start doing some rental property returns for some mates. I can invoice them and the income and therefore the eventual profit after I've claimed some expenses would go under my individual IRD number and I am a sole trader. That's what that means. A lot of people probably wouldn't understand that. A lot of people still think you need a company to start a business, which you're very well versed in. But 400,000 of these people that are contracting or sole trading, I think the entire working population might only actually be around 2.5 million. Does that sound about right?
I think it's a bit high. Roughly, the sole trader, sort of sole individual operator, it accounts for anywhere between sort of 17 and 20% of the workworkforce.
Okay, so it's 17 and 20. Yeah,
it's a pretty big slice, and it covers. And we always kind of talk about, because a lot of people just assume that it's maybe a high value contractor in government or it's a tradesperson, when actually it's personal trainers, it's locum doctors, it's midwives, it's freelance graphic designers, gig workers, tutorers. It's such a if you can imagine a job, there are people doing it as a sole trader. And there are entire industries that are sole traders. The film and TV industry. There's a lot of people in the media who are all operating as sole traders and journalists. There was such a broad spectrum, but I think a lot of what people assume is like, oh, you must be talking about a carpenter, and we see a lot of these really crazy things that come out in the papers. And we've seen it recently with, people giving these opinion pieces in the paper about, oh, sole traders want to build their business so that they can sell it. And we have to say to them, like, a midwife is not selling their business at this retirement. They just happen to work in an industry where it's commonplace to be independent and commonplace to be a sole trader. So yeah, there's a lot of this weird thing of like, oh, well, sole traders are taking a risk by doing this and they decided to do it themselves. It's like, no, if you're a courier driver, you have to be self-employed. If you're a midwife, if I look at film and TV as a great example. If you are working on a particular film, you're not going to be permanently employed by that production company because the film production only runs for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. And so it's about understanding that this is not, sole traders is not everyone's got a online store, an e-commerce store, and therefore they chose to do this. Sometimes it's just in order to earn a living, they must be self-employed.
Yeah, it's probably an area that Kiwi people don't understand. And I get the sense at the moment the media are going down a real big path of opinion pieces. And sometimes I read them and I'm like, okay, great, you can write, but where's the qualification to have an opinion in this space?
I saw one the other day that was actually, the opinion was that if you wanted to offset the recent government change in budget 2025 to slash the KiwiSaver contribution for individuals by 50%, which was unbelievable. For sole traders, that's a big disincentive to engage in KiwiSaver. Someone in an opinion piece had said, what sole traders should do is incorporate a company and then pay themselves as salary and provide an employer contribution from their own company as well as their employee contribution. And it's just nuts. When you run the numbers, I think it would save you something like $25 a year that you would then owe on your student loan as an individual anyway. It just wouldn't save you any money. But there's this ridiculous advice that people get given in opinion pieces online, which is just really weird ideas that people think there's a way to, to suddenly magic money out of the air just by creating complex structures. But yeah, there's a lot of disinformation that happens, and all it takes is an opinion piece to go, in my view, this is what you could do without providing any actual, workings or numbers around it.
No one told me I was going to have to then spend $4,000 a year with an accountant to do this properly.
My personal tax return, my company tax return, and then I've got payroll software I've got to buy. It's just, it's crazy.
The annual fee to keep the company, even the closing down of. I saw some data the other day that there's been more companies started than closed, and The Economist was basically saying this doesn't really make sense. But what it is, well, I believe, and again, this is my opinion, but I live in the accounting space, so maybe this is my
Maybe you are qualified.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I could be wrong. Is that you can start a company in less than a day. It takes about 3 hours, and basically anybody can do it. When you close a company, that is hard, and it takes months. People don't know how to do it, and they go, well, I started one in 2020 for my side hustle, and I can't be bothered dealing with that in 2025. I'm just going to ignore it and see what happens. Like, it doesn't just magically go away.
No.
Eventually, the company's office may get rid of it, but to do it properly, there's a process, it's costly, and it's time-consuming, and it's hard.
Yeah, and we see this so much where people go out into self-employment, and maybe it's a midwife or someone in film and TV or a personal trainer, and they get given some advice, and they go, oh, I should create a company structure.
Yeah.
And what happens is they create this company structure, they incur all of the costs and all of the problems of it, and then they come to us and they go, I'd really want to use Hnry, but I'm a company. And we go, well, we can help you with that process of transitioning from company to sole trader, and our team do this day in, day out. But as you say, there's a process around it, and it would be much easier if we weren't in such a situation where there was this misinformation out there that you needed to be a company. And MB is working really hard to try and stop people setting up sham companies for no apparent reason. But it's fighting this kind of inertia that people have where, like we were when we were contracting, we almost set up a company just because we wanted business cards, because we thought that actually you can't claim expenses unless you're a company, which is just, it's absolute nonsense. But a lot of our role is actually educating people, which is, as a sole trader, you can employ staff, you can be GST registered, you can claim business expenses, no different from someone under a company structure, but with a lot less cost and hassle.
What are you doing in that payroll space for the sole traders if they are hiring?
We have a third party we work with that does a bunch of payroll stuff. So we kind of integrate with them. It's it's not our own payroll solution. It's not not our game. No. But we don't have that many people that do. But we like to have the option there if people do need to payroll, they can.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so something else that I saw recently is that the economy has shrunk in terms of hours work and what people want to be doing. There's now 400 and something thousand people that want extra work, but the economy shrunk by about 4% in that space. I wondered, do you think some of it is that people are, and I don't know if this data ties in together, but I wonder, are you seeing more people go towards being a sole trader or a contractor, or go, I've learned about this, I don't need to be an employee, I might go and contract to 2 or 3 places? Have you noticed a spike in that as the economy's gotten tougher?
We always see that when it contracts. I mean, we saw right into COVID where there's this sort of process that happens whereby large organizations, when the economy contracts, they shed a whole bunch of their workforce. And a part of that workforce that gets booted out because they thought they had a job for life, they get restructured out of an organization, they suddenly realize that actually they've spent all of their career with all of their eggs in one basket, relying on all of their income coming from one single entity. And a lot of them are highly skilled, or they have some skills they can apply themselves. And they say, well, actually, why wouldn't I be independent, take control over how I earn, ply my trade as an independent rather than relying on someone else, and then have the control to earn through different sources as I like. And with stuff like Hnry being there, allowing them to go and do that with impunity and with the confidence that they're going to be up to date on all of their compliance, what we see is actually a big swing in the sort of when the economy contracts and people go, right, I'm going to start earning some or all of my income independently. And they don't go back to salaried employment. And so we're seeing this kind of generational shift where people want that control. They're realizing that having a salaried job is not the sort of permanent employment that it maybe used to be, and you're only one restructure away from being out on your ass. And they're saying, well, I don't want that uncertainty, and I'm going to take the control myself. So I think we've seen a huge, over the last sort of 3-4 years, there's a huge kind of frequency of spikes that happen where people suddenly go, actually, I can do this myself, and it's not so hard to do. And what we're seeing is then the happiness levels of those people are increasing. You know, we run our Hnry Sole Trader Pulse, which is our index of sole trader sentiment that we do quarterly. And sole traders are happy. They are confident. They're not struggling eating ramen noodles. You know, these are people who are really enjoying the control, the flexibility, the opportunity. And, you know, the vast majority of them would never go back to permanent work again.
Fascinating. What about side hustles? Are you seeing people that come on and they might do 10, 20 grand a little bit round the edges, and that's how they're staying on top of taxes?
Yeah, we do. We see people who are, so there's traditional side hustles of someone has a salary job and they earn a bit on the side. But what we're also seeing is the rise of the real portfolio career, where you've got real estate agents who are driving Uber in between different viewings because they're they've got a few hours on their hands, they can switch on Uber and earn a little bit of extra cash. And we're seeing people who are really leveraging the widest spectrum of their skills. So it's not just, by day I'm an accountant as a salaried staff member, then, by night I do some accounting work on the side. You've got people going, well, by day I build websites, and by night I write children's books and put them on Amazon and sell them to people there. It's people are really looking at all of their skills and saying, what am I actually able to do with these skills? And
Nice.
I don't have to limit myself to like just one line of work.
Oh, geez, mate, it's refreshing to hear. I've been banging on about this for 5 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Kiwi people struggle to see how skillful they are, right? Because I think a lot of people, if they want to make a bit of money, they think that they need an idea, or they need to be someone like you and go, oh, well, I need to build this massive thing. Or actually, I could probably trade me 3.0 times by 24,000 iterations. Instead of, what am I good at? What would someone pay for? And even I was in the Gold Coast recently, and my partner said to me, shit, imagine being a Kiwi who moved over here. It'd be so easy to make money, because you could put up a post and say, hey, if you ever come to Australia, I'm happy to look after your kids whilst you go off on a date or enjoy a bit of the nightlife, etc. There'd be the trust there. There'd be they're a Kiwi. Hey, maybe they're a teacher, for instance. And that's actually like a really good example of how valuable somebody is in the marketplace to somebody else. But instead we're like, what $1 trillion idea?
Yeah, everyone wants a moonshot. Everyone wants to be like, I need to, and particularly, if you're first starting out, there's never going to be an overnight success, and it's never going to be like, oh, I did this one thing. And, I do occasionally see things come up on Instagram and other things, which is like, oh, I did that one YouTube video that netted me $12 million.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's the exception to the rule. Like, I think this sort of, I do wonder whether or not people don't accept the fact that actually being average is excellent. And not everyone needs to be a billionaire or a millionaire or not. And actually there's such a sort of, I don't know, I'm just getting old, but I'm like, actually, I just don't feel that people are realistic about what's going to be possible. And if they were realistic, they'd say, do you know what would be really good? To have a stable income, be able to take family holidays, have some investments, blah, 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 be able to actually enjoy my life, as opposed to, I've got to be Elon Musk or nothing. And it's, whereas I think we need so much more kind of celebration of just people who are just good at what they do. They're able to earn money. They have a nice home life. They're not constantly trying to push themselves to, exceed all expectations, because not everyone can do that. And, we do kind of see that challenge of like, if you do have a side hustle, that's great, but you don't have to turn that into your full-time business. That's just, it could be nice passive income. It's, I don't know, everyone's sort of, there's too many influencers trying to get people to buy books on how to scale a business to $100 million a year, and not enough people saying, actually, the best thing that you can do is have a business that does 500 grand a year and just live a really nice life.
Yeah, often when I talk to younger people, I show them income data around how much top incomes are in New Zealand. And I'm like, if you want to make 250K, you need to be a 1%er. And I'm like, you're currently watching content where someone's telling you they made $1 million, man, last month. It was easy as, here's what I did. I'm like, you're in for a fucking shock out there in New Zealand, because this is not exactly how it works. But yeah, it is. I do think at the moment with the higher level of unemployment, there's a lot of people realizing, I'm I'm not as secure as I thought, much like you said. And then, okay, the people you're seeing are probably a bit further down the path where they've gone, sheesh, my back's against the wall, I'm going to iterate, and wow. And now they're happier, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think when you can get in control of your income, that is, an amazing feeling to have. And it's so empowering, when you can solve problems, when you can solve problems for the market and transact. It's a completely different teaching and understanding and education to, if you're good at this, like they might hire you and then you might get a pay rise if you get better at it or turn up on time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, everyone that I sort of speak to about this, there's a sort of feeling that people want the glamour work. They want the sort of, I want the high value income to be coming in, but I don't want to have to put in a lot of effort. I really would like to build passive income sources, whereas actually some of the most successful people are people who found a thing that nobody else wanted to do and did it the best.
Yes.
And it's, and it's being able to kind of dig in and go, it might be picking up dog mess. It might be, looking after other people's children when they're too busy. It might be, there's all sorts of things out there that actually might be cleaning bathrooms. Like there's things that need doing and there are opportunities to do it better than other people. And it's those quiet achievers who go and take something like that to market and go, and I look at, I was over in the UK visiting our team and we were staying in a hotel and we had the family with us because the only time that Claire and I can both fly overseas is when we take the kids with us. So it has to be school holidays. And so this mountain of washing had, got picked up in the hotel. And I looked at the hotel's rates. Have you ever looked at how much hotels charge you for laundry? And I started adding it up. It's per item. And I added up and I was like, it would have been like $400 or something. It was ridiculous because it's in GBP as well. But anyway, so I started searching around. I'm like, what's the alternative? And came across an awesome business, which is doing very well, that basically picks up your laundry from the hotel, goes and cleans it, folds it, brings it back the next day, and just it's all facilitated by reception. So I literally, Claire was funny because she was like, well, what if they nick off with our clothes or whatever?
Yeah.
That classic skepticism. But I booked it. They have a driver tracker. I left just a dirty bag of washing in reception and they came along, they picked it up, they washed the clothes, folded them, brought them back the next day, all seamless. And I literally picked them up from reception and it was like an eighth of the price or something ridiculous. It was so cheap. It was ridiculously cheap. And it was that thing of like, it's a job that no one else wanted to do at that point, which is doing laundry. It is not, it's not a glamorous job. But I think the people who have made that app are going to be extremely successful. I know they're rolling it out into different countries, but it's it's those kind of things. It doesn't have to be glamorous. It doesn't have to be the sexiest business. But actually, if you take something that's really valuable to people, that is take a pain away from them that they're willing to pay for, that's the thing that's actually going to give you success.
Yeah, and it solves the convenience too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So a couple of questions here from Instagram, and the first one is, any integrations with tradie job management on the horizon, all about being more efficient? So you must be seeing more tradies use the platform, right?
It's a big part of the Hnry customer base are tradies. So at the moment, the majority of them that are integrating are using our Zapier integration. So sign up for Zapier, which I would just recommend any business owner does anyway, because it's just incredible automation for your business. But sign up to Zapier. You can hook Hnry into thousands of different apps via that, and you can have expenses created, invoice created. You can log all of that information. That's the easiest way to connect with anything else. But this, I can't recommend enough just getting on Zapier generally for automating your business.
Now, this person, I feel like they might know you, because the question is, what colour for the Aston?
Oh, that's awkward.
It says, he will laugh, trust me.
Oh, yeah. It's
You're a car fan?
I am a car fan. I'm a big car fan. So that's my. It's funny. I never used to be a car fan. Like I was like big car fan as a child, and then just kind of got out of it, and then as I've been last like 10, 15 years, I've just kind of got car YouTube is just so engaging, right? It's like I've reached that point in my life where if I can watch Matt Armstrong rebuild a crashed car for like 45 minutes, like I'm in my happy place. And I think like 10 years ago, I never would have sat anywhere for 45 minutes. But for some reason, car YouTube for me has become like a rabbit hole. It's my secret shame.
So what colour?
I think metallic blue. Blue.
Nice, we want to see it. You strike me as a very humble dude and a very like non-materialistic. I could be wrong.
I try. I don't.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this car.
I think it's for me. Like I don't don't really, big purchases, sort of houses and cars and stuff are that's it for me. I don't buy anything else.
Yeah.
I don't, like we were talking about watches earlier, like I'm not a watch person. I'm not a jewelry person. I'm not a, I literally wear the same outfit every day just because it's, it's simple. But yeah, I'm not into the kind of showy stuff necessarily like that.
What are you into? Like, what's valuable for you? Is it freedom, time with the kids and stuff?
Oh, I mean, now that Claire and I have got to a certain point, we can go and pick the kids up from school and actually kind of spend some more quality time with them.
Yeah.
That's really valuable. I think just travel and, been locked away for 8 years, being able to actually go and do some travel. So for school holidays, Claire and we're taking the kids over to Tokyo for a week.
Wow.
Which is just like, that's the pinnacle for us, is just kind of time away, just shutting off from stuff, going somewhere interesting, preferably somewhere where we don't really know the language. Like that's always quite fun. But yeah, that for us is like, that's the real value there, is actually, that's what you're doing it for, right? Like money wise, you can't take it with you. And, a friend of mine said to me this the other day, like, it's great to be earning money, but what are you doing with it? Like it's, you could have a massive property portfolio, you could be doing all of this stuff, but you still can't take it with you at the end. If you're not spending time with your family, if you're not actually enjoying what you're doing, then what kind of life are you leading? And I think that's the thing of money doesn't give you happiness. It's not the same thing. It's actually some of the best times that I've had in my life have been on the cheap, and I'd still subscribe to that. That I probably I'm probably a cheap person. Claire will tell you, she'll be like, he's so cheap. But I kind of prefer actually being a bit more frugal. I think is just a sensible thing.
Well, you need to keep some money back in the business, mate, and have it liquid to deal with all these legal fees.
That's crazy.
But I think you say something important there, and I think I just add a distinction where you've done the work to learn that. I think a lot of people will hear you say that you can't take it with you, and then they go, epic. That's just my permission to now blow every dollar I get. It's like,
not financial advice.
You can't listen to someone like James say that. He's gone through a journey of busting his ass to get money and to have the potential to have more of it, and can see how he can do that by like doing hours and hours and years of dedication to his craft, to then go, oh yeah, I'm not actually that into material things, but maybe I'll reward myself in the future, etc. And you're learning some philosophy about it. Whereas other people will take it and go, oh, epic, there's my cue to like blitz through everything. You're not there yet. You don't get to jump to this chapter.
I'm not advocating like YOLO all your money now and just kind of just go out. But I think it's also, after, I don't know, I've been working for so long, and that's the weirdest thing. You can't imagine not working. I first got a job at like 15 or something, working in a deli, and then I don't think I've stopped working since for longer than a couple of weeks, and even then I find it difficult to switch off. So it's sort of, it's at some point, if you realize that you're not going to suddenly stop working, and even if you moved on from your current place of work, if we moved on from Hnry for some reason, I'm not going to stop working because I'd lose my mind. So it's more about finding that balance of what are the things that you can do, that hobbies that make you happy. And I've got to the stage now that me and a couple of mates have got really into our go-karting now, just rental cars, just go along to the rental track or whatever, and it's me and my couple of, they're actually parents of my kids' friends, and we just take it far too seriously, and we've got a little spreadsheet with a leaderboard, and we track the times. Got to have a spreadsheet, but it's stuff like that, like Friday afternoon, going and just doing literally 20 minutes, and then go for a beer afterwards with the guys. Like that's happiness for me, because 8 years ago, never would have been able to do that. I would have been answering customer communications. I would have been thinking about our next marketing campaign. So to have that time is so valuable.
I paid a couple $100 with my partner the other day at Movie World to skip the line. Ooh. And a younger version, like a scarce version of Luke, would have been like, that's for rich people, that's like real arrogant people. Who do they think they are? How important do they think they are? Man, I was walking down that line, walking past people, being like, I couldn't make eye contact with them. I was still like, but I'm like, man, this is epic to be able to get to a point that that's the tool, money, that I can use to buy my time back. And we were in and out of there way faster. And I think it's so not the Kiwi way to be like, nah, that's a waste of money. But when you get to a point, much like getting the clothing done, you're like, where can I buy my time back? Because it is valuable. And you don't bust your ass this hard to then walk around and go, wicked, I'm going to do the laundry for 2 hours.
I think this is the really interesting thing, right? Because, I would say that I'm not there yet. Claire and I aren't there yet. But you get to a certain stage where, if you are, particularly in New Zealand has this thing of like, if you're showing wealth, there can be people who will say, well, that's pretty vulgar to do that. But otherwise, what is the payoff? You know what I mean? Like a sort of, I do know people who have made significant fortunes out of investments, and they're still driving around in a Honda Jazz.
Yeah.
And, which is fine. That's good for some people. But if you're earning and you're working and you're busting your ass so hard, at what point can you actually go, do you know what? I will skip the line at Movie World. I will,
let the money go.
I will actually, maybe not shop at Kmart the whole time. That's never going to stop, by the way. Like, love Kmart. Claire more than me, but, you can always get a deal in there. And that's, it's, my friends give me a whole heap of shit, and they're like, you still Kmart? Still, not trading up to the warehouse for something? And I'm like, no. There was no need. Like, why would you bother? Like, you save your money and go and spend it on experiences, go and spend it on, trips, go and spend it on things like memories. Like that's the kind of thing that you can't buy. You just literally go and buy an experience, because that's going to be the fun that you're going to take with you for years and years, rather than necessarily something, just, I don't know, like a fancy shirt or a fancy pair of trousers. You don't need those.
You spill something on it, then you're like, damn it, that used to not frustrate me. Now it does, because it's $400 of fabric.
Well, also, I'm a super clumsy dude. So I'll walk into a table leg or something and rip a hole in something fancy. So there's no point giving me nice things to wear.
I've curbed every one of my Tesla mags. And every time I think about trading and getting a nicer car, because you end up down that marketing funnel, I'm like, I'm probably not the guy. I saw this Audi yesterday of these epic mags, and I thought, wow, those are really cool, how they've evolved to be so minimal. And I thought, mine would not look like that. I do not need a car like that.
If you curb your wheels, we can't be friends. I'm just going to say that.
Mate, I'm sorry. You do not want to see. Yeah, it is bad. I did want to ask you, going back to earlier when you were talking about you and Claire, right? We start mapping out the next thing. Do you guys take a conscious effort to stop and celebrate with just because I'd imagine there's so much going on that I think it's something I see a lot in business owners and entrepreneurial people, where we don't do this enough?
We don't do it enough. We do it occasionally, but it tends to be like milestone moments. And it's when milestone moments happens, that's when you almost have that point where you step back and you go, wow, look back 8 years and see how far we've come. But those moments are few and far between. Like, in between that, we're just grinding every single day, and it's and still trying to just to grind for every single customer and believe in every single customer. And it's hard to then turn around and go, oh, let's reminisce about 8 years ago, because it's not in our nature to do it, because we're so busy kind of pushing forward. And so it takes kind of a big milestone moment, maybe a capital raise, or even the sort of, when you have one of those experiences that you've been afforded because of the hustle of the last however many years in our careers, it's about going, that's something that can only have existed because of what's happened with Hnry. And it's only because of that we have been able to do that. And we never would have had the opportunity to have X, Y, and Z experience if we hadn't have the last 8 years of pain to get through this,
Yeah, nice. Going back to what you were saying about, you struggle to not want to work. It just reminds me, I was working on a post and I thought, I know that these posts won't really hit because, say, LinkedIn, it's got a wide spectrum, right? But what I was trying to articulate is employees often try to figure out how to maximize their time off, whereas business owners are worried about taking time off. And that is a shit way to articulate it. But what it came away from is that I had a 20-minute yarn with a group of business owners, and we were trying to talk about how do you navigate going away for a week? Any tips or tools or tactics for not working for a week? And we're all bashing ideas for 20 minutes. And I thought, imagine 20 employees sitting around this conversation being like, look at these fucking psychos that are trying to work out how to not work.
We did it once. We achieved it, sort of, in that. But it was, I had to go to extreme lengths. I had to uninstall a whole bunch of stuff off my phone. I had to ask one of our staff members to cover my email. And I said, I'm just going to delete the email app. But here are the sort of 3 things I usually do, which is either bin them off if they're people trying to market me stuff, or, here's the escalation points. And I had to almost kind of literally eject myself from everything and go, I can't be available to look at anything. I allowed myself one dashboard, which was we have a kind of running ticker of how much sort of customer funds has flowed through our accounts, and you can use that as a proxy to see whether you're having a good day or a bad day or whatever. And I allowed myself that one dashboard and just nothing else for about 10 days or so. And it was the first time in the entire lifetime of the business that I'd actually shut off. I don't think, Claire didn't do the same thing, but she's able to compartmentalize a bit more and she could turn off a bit more than I could. But yeah, that was a couple of years ago now. So
was that tracking customer NPS, customer numbers, and then go-kart?
Go-kart lap times. Yeah, that's all I allow myself. No, it's so hard to switch off because, and the worst thing is when you do switch off, I say it's the worst thing, it's actually a good thing, but when you do switch off, you actually subconsciously end up having some clarity about work things and then it sucks you back in.
Yes.
And, I'd love to say that I'm one of these people that can disappear off into a cabin in the woods. I know I catch up with Asantha from PaySource quite often, and they used to have a place that had no internet, no Wi-Fi, no signal, and they'd take the family up there and just literally go off-grid for a week. And just sounds like my idea of hell.
Yeah, same.
I need some level of connection with things, but sometimes I have needed to just cut myself off from work because the tendency is there I'll just have a little look, or this idea's come up, I'll just kind of put it there for later and I'll just message someone about it. But I think we're long overdue for another one of those switching off holidays. I think it's been, a tough couple of years for a lot of New Zealand.
Yeah, I think you might deserve it, mate. I think you definitely do. Most Kiwi don't have a financial plan. They have a she'll be right, mate attitude. Amy from Leverage is helping KTC listeners change that. If you're needing direction, clarity, or wondering what your next financial move should be, then book a call with Amy or download her free DIY financial plan to freedom. To do that, visit financialplan.co.nz. I want to ask this is a bit of a selfish question. As your profile has grown and as your power, let's say, has grown, how do you deal with the asks? You must get asks every week, whether it's buy our shit, you should be using our marketing company. Can you help me with this? I've got this idea. Can I have a coffee with you?
I get a lot. I mean, the first half of the things that you put there is I just tend to ignore them. I just, you get so many kind of cold emails, cold calls. Anything warm intro wise, I will absolutely engage with. If it comes through a mutual contact, I'll absolutely engage with that. Anything where it's folks wanting to coffee or wanting some advice or whatever, I'll also engage with that. Like I'm quite happy to give up some of my time. I think, one of the things that I get quite a lot is people asking about kind of capital raising for startups. And so I'm happy to give people my Calendly booking link and they can find some time and I'm happy to run them through. There's also I've given some time to an initiative at the moment called What Founders Want, which is run by Lane Litz, who's amazing, former founder herself. And she's collating a huge amount of resources for first-time tech startup founders. And so I've written a bunch of content for her, which is the sorts of thing I would sit down with early-stage founders and talk about and talk them through how to capital raise, how to build a pitch deck, how to think about talking to investors. And so I've kind of distilled a whole bunch of my thinking down there on the sort of What Founders Want website. And so I'm more than happy to sit down with people and talk through those experiences and warts and all. Hey, this is what what we went through. But yeah, anything sales-wise, I tend to just ignore it because it's very obvious when they send the same email to Claire and I and very generic or AI, response stuff. It's just not worth it.
We could start a mutual relationship. Usually those two words, I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
But what about just the generic stuff? Like, oh, be great to catch up for a coffee. Like, do you have a bit of a about? Like, I just have started asking people, what about? Like, what is it you want to do?
I do ask. If someone's got a genuine need, like always happy to, but sometimes it's, and I used to do this to people. Like you email them and go, I just want to pick your brain about something. And, it's just an opportunity to sit down and maybe try and sell something. But, I'll always ask, is there something specific that you want some help with? Or is there something that, and a lot of the time, if it just comes back as like, oh no, I just thought it would be good to grow my network. Sometimes I have to say, well, unfortunately I've got, quite a lot going on, particularly the next couple of months. Can we just put a pin in it and maybe check back in a little while? I'll never be like a dickhead to people and say, no, I don't want to talk to you. But sometimes I think it's hard for people to quantify just how many of those come through. And I would say on any morning, I will wake up to like 15 emails from companies that want to sell us stuff, probably about another 5 emails from investment funds that are speculatively spamming a whole bunch of people. And I just literally, I wake up in the morning and I just go archive, and I just get rid of the whole lot. So it's not about having a creative approach. It's actually, if you reach out personally and there's something that I can help with, I'm always keen and I'm always happy to help people out. But if you're just going to spam me like generic nonsense and then generic follow-ups, then I'm probably just going to like block your email.
there's a good principle in this for anyone, not just approaching James, but go through a mutual connection and figure out and be specific about what you want. Like busy people hate general and kind of, it's almost like it's disrespectful. It's almost like, hey, I know that you're really successful and really busy. Can I just pick your brains? It's almost like you're saying you don't appreciate how busy they are and what they're doing to get to where they are. And I just think it's rife at the moment where people aren't putting in enough effort to try and access some of the top talent of New Zealand who are actually very giving with their time when they could just be like, no.
And don't, whatever you do, don't buy my phone number off a list and try and cold call me, because I will not pick up the phone. And I think that's the thing, like I've learned over the years that if you're not in my contacts list, I just won't answer the phone. And because every time I do, it's someone trying to sell me something, and it could be from here or Australia or now the UK. And so I just have my voicemail has been updated to, hey, don't leave me a message because I don't listen to voicemails. You can text me or call or email me. But don't leave me a message. And it's amazing to see how many people still go on to leave a message because they're clearly in their, in their call center, not even listening to it. And so it's I don't like receiving calls anymore because it's actually it's I don't know. There's something that's there's a surprise element of a phone call of when if you don't know who it is and you pick it up. And sometimes it's not a good surprise. So I'm a bit like if you text me and you email me, at least I have the time to digest what this is and come back with a response rather than being kind of like caught on the hook.
Well, I hired someone to answer my phone, mate, and it goes to them, and then they answer it and say it's blah, blah, blah from Next Advisory. That could be the hack for you. Anyway, hey, I know you've got to get out of here or you are a busy man. Let's just get you fired up before we go on some of these government changes recently. You guys have been advocating a lot for sole traders, which I think is awesome, which we touched on at the start, where now these people do have a bit of a voice. And KiwiSaver changes, they basically shafted the top income earners, which is probably pretty traditional in New Zealand. Anytime you're doing really well, they're like, great, you can pay more or you should get less. So it's no surprise and no one's going to be too offended because it's a small group of people. But we've gone from giving sole traders who are putting in 1,043, using round numbers, $521 as a government contribution to encourage them to contribute towards their future, to now only getting $260. So it's been tanked by 50%.
50%, yep.
And that means that there is a decreasing incentive for sole traders to put into KiwiSaver. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it as such, but the incentive, basically the framework is broken compared to an everyday employee or a shareholder salary employee, an employee of their own company. So someone trading through a company who's paying themselves a salary. Yeah. Those two are working fine, but the sole trader in the middle is getting shafted, and it's becoming increasingly a large area of our workforce.
Oh, it's huge. And it's when we speak to sole traders about the impact from this, there's such I think it's like 7-8% of them just said they're just not going to invest in KiwiSaver anymore. They're literally pulling themselves out. 25% are saying they're going to reduce their contributions. I think what the government has done has obviously saved them a few bob, and it's got a bit of a saving on the balance sheet for them, which is great. But I think what they've inadvertently done is created a generation of sole traders who will require more support from the state in later life because they will not have their own retirement savings. They'll be reliant on government pension. And the worst case scenario here is we're going to get a bunch of sole traders who will actually, because they're not getting the contribution, they will redirect what they would have paid into KiwiSaver into higher risk investments. And they'll say, I've got to make up that extra money that I was going to get from the government that was going to compound over the next 20 years. And they will put it into some high risk investments that may not come off for them. And I think that's where it's a bit of a short-sighted decision to slash that contribution, because we're already seeing the impacts where people are saying, well, actually, government doesn't care, so I won't invest in KiwiSaver. Or they start doing the crazy stuff that we were talking about earlier of like, well, if I incorporate a company and then pay myself an employer contribution and my own contribution, it's just crazy nonsense. And I think we're starting to sort of see more noise in the media about this, which is great. And Hnry just co-authored a paper with the Retirement Commission around the retirement habits of sole traders. And some of the statistics are really confronting in just how much of that sole trader population has not invested anything in KiwiSaver, is not thinking about retirement. And I think this sort of government policy has only served to make that problem worse. it's sort of putting the problem off into the future. Maybe this government won't be in power when all of those sole traders come knocking and say, well, we all need the government contribution to government pension to prop us up because we've got no retirement savings. But it's it could be someone else's problem. But
there's two crazy things in there that are really hard to understand. And one is that government policy makes something worse, would have never have thought. And then two, that we're kicking another problem down the road. It's just
it's so frustrating. I know you said you'd get me riled up, but we're pretty incensed by this. This is just another signal that those 400,000 Kiwi who earn some or all of their income independently are just an afterthought. They're a line on the balance sheet that can just be written off. They're not seen for the value they provide to the economy. And so, we got together and we said we've actually, we've got to do something about this because there's no one else representing them. And so we actually went forward, we randomly selected 500 of our customers and we paid into their KiwiSaver to the tune of the other 50% they should have got from the government.
Wow.
So we basically invested $130,000 in our own customers' KiwiSavers to say, government might have shafted you, but we're in a position that we can help out. And so that was a big thing. And just, again, that was something that was amazing to see the response from our customers going, I just woke up this morning to find that you basically, doubled my KiwiSaver contribution that the government gave me. And suddenly, I feel a bit more encouraged to pay into that. But it shouldn't take private organizations like us to drop 130K paying into people's KiwiSavers just to try and encourage them to save for their retirement, just to plug a hole that the government created.
The settings are wrong, and I think we always have this stupid tax argument in New Zealand that it's a real simple tax system. We don't want to change any of it, and it's going to get changed eventually. But it's almost like it's so simple it's not working. We've got, and therefore it wouldn't actually be that hard to make some of these changes. Where if a sole trader does kick in, great, they're then not taxed on that. We've got an ability now to claim back donation receipts through the IRD system. I don't know, maybe it's harder than it looks, but a bit of law change, a bit of understanding of how big this area of the economy actually is and how, because these people aren't building an asset, a lot of them, that they can sell, as you touched on earlier, that they can then rely on for their retirement, like they're going to need to be providing for it. Anything else that you would like to see the government doing for sole traders, or anything that you think we need to be thinking about that you guys come across all the time with representing so many of these people?
I think the government should take some cues from the rest of the world. I think New Zealand is, in some areas, is always the last to pick stuff up. But when you look at other OECD countries and the way that they've recognized the rise of the self-employed economy and the benefits of the self-employed economy, and they've reacted accordingly by giving tax breaks to sole traders in various industries that are understaffed, or they are, providing kind of tax regimes that encourage people into self-employment. Ireland's got this, Italy's got this. You can start to see how they're really taking advantage of and benefiting. The whole economy is benefiting from sole traders being out there in the market. Whereas I think our government here is not quite as innovative as they would think, and they're not actually investing the time to understand what could be done. We talk about, even just across sort of in the general sphere, talk about kind of the GST threshold itself. We have hundreds of, we would say it's probably thousands of Kiwi who are stuck in this GST trap where they sell directly to the public. So think of a personal trainer, and they're approaching the GST threshold and starting to think that they have to register for GST. But if they do, they're going to have to raise their prices to their end consumer because that end consumer can't claim that GST. So you imagine your personal training session goes from, $50 to $57.50.
Yep.
Are you going to say, well, actually, that's a cost of living increase that I'm having to deal with. I might go and find the guy that's going to do it for 50. And so we have a whole kind of group of sole traders who are deliberately sandbagging their own earnings so that they don't go over the GST threshold, so that they don't have to raise their prices. So again, the net impact to New Zealand's GDP is negative because we got a whole bunch of people that say, if I go to the next stage in my business, in my career, I have to charge my retail customers more money and I'm going to lose business over it. So it serves me better to not earn as much money, which is a wild thing to go on in an economy. And, we talk to the government about this and we get the shrug of, there's not much we can do. And
could maybe inflation adjust the 60,000,
Well, I think it's not, the GST threshold has not been adjusted for how many years now? It was adjusted if a few years, after a few years. I think it's is it 10, 15 years or something? We've been on the same one.
I'm not sure, but
it's wild.
The whole time I've been in the game. Yeah.
Well, it needs to be adjusted, and we're sort of, we're big advocates for adjusting that, by inflation. I think the problem is, I think we're up against it with some of the, obviously present company excluded, but some of the more traditional parts of the accounting industry. They don't want to have to do the legwork of lots of other people, having to kind of get involved with GST. Whereas actually for us, it's, we've automated all of that. And so actually simple. We make it simple for people, but it should be about what's best for the economy and what's best for the individual, not about, hey, what's easiest for the accounting industry? Let's keep the GST threshold where it is. And
I think as well, like back in the day, everyone would talk about secondary tax because the way to get some more money was to get a second job. We don't live in that economy anymore. No. We live in a, how else could I make some money? Oh, I am a nurse by day, but I go and do some Uber, I go and do something else. And they're normally completely different. It's not, like, oh, I've got two similar jobs for two different employees, therefore secondary tax, was a big thing that helped people make sure they paid the same amount of tax. It's now people are going to find different ways to make money.
And that's the norm, and I always say to people, for years, people keep talking to me about, the future of work. No, it's here. Yeah. We've been doing it for 10 years. There's people, where have you been? The future of work is literally all of this stuff. People, as you say, earning multiple different income sources at different times. And I think the more we can educate people about the fact that exists, that you don't have to just have one vocation, that's the only way that you can earn money. You have you've got that portfolio career, that set of skills that you can dial up and down as the market dictates. So as demand increases for a certain part of your skill set, you go and invest yourself in that, and then you can dial down other bits that are less relevant. But not understanding, and you made the point earlier that a lot of Kiwi don't understand that they have a portfolio of skills that they can dial up and down because they say, oh, I'm a carpenter, or I'm a midwife, or I'm a graphic designer, and they don't actually go, but what are the skills I have in there? What are the sorts of things that I do in order to have that vocation that could be useful elsewhere?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if any changes come. I would imagine, as I've observed with New Zealand, we start talking about it, we push it away, we delay it, we then go, oh yeah, that's really smart, we'll do it later. The thing that shits me with the whole GST thing is that there's people thinking about that when they should be thinking about, where's my next job coming from? How could I innovate? What else could I be doing? Could I be doing some marketing? Should I reinvest some of this money? Instead, they're going, oh, damn it, should I do over $60,000 of this? Because then I have to be and it's like, that's not how an economy grows.
No, absolutely. And I think, again, it's that fundamental misunderstanding that the financial policy that's set up from central government is not designed to encourage people to be sole traders or self-employed. It's a punitive system that does not look to bring innovation to the economy. And I think that's where, we're going to need to see some significant change, particularly in times of, economic contraction. And with, when you look across the ditch to Australia and talking about things like superannuation over there, a very different environment in Australia when it comes to thinking about the self-employed, investing in the self-employed. The fact that in Australia, there is an entity class of ABN sole trader. They are officially recognised in Australia as being their own entity class. It's still an individual, and it's still someone who's, still that same responsibility, same tax file number, but they're actually recognised, and they can say to people, I'm an ABN sole trader. That is something that is miles away in New Zealand, of actually recognising the sole trader as its own entity class. We can't even put them on the census. You can't even ask IRD how many there are. You have to go and find like 17 different sources to get that. And it's wild that we live in a world where it's 20% of our workforce and nobody knows it's there.
It's nuts. Any of the political parties that seem to be more accepting or willing to have some of these conversations?
I would love to say yes. We asked all of the political parties before the last election. Specifically, we reached out to every single one and said, what would you do for sole traders if you were elected? And
they're like, who are they?
Honestly, there was like stopping ram raids, and that was ridiculous. There was cutting red tape, and I was like, look,
these are slogans.
Like, midwives aren't doing anti-money laundering checks on their clients. Like, this is not about, they're not manufacturing businesses. So I think, unfortunately, across the board, there was a real lack of understanding. But that's okay, because that's where Hnry comes in. We're here to preach that understanding, and I've had various meetings down at the Beehive, and over the last 4 or 5 years, we have found pockets that are more understanding. The thing now is translating those pockets of understanding into policies of understanding. So we'll get there, but it's a really big focus area for us, is actually making sure that we do get a government that understands sole traders.
Probably a big challenge, I reckon, in New Zealand is that a lot of politicians are older or not really at the coalface for a lot of the things that they're talking about, and a lot of our brightest and best in New Zealand are entrepreneurial, and they're in an age bracket where they're probably 10, 15 years younger, and there's a bit of a, oh, you're doing cool stuff, mate, good on you, like, keep it up, but what the fuck are you actually doing? We don't really. And so then there's this disconnect of, oh, we need your support now because you've got the power. We're making it happen. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll catch up about that at some stage, but don't really get it.
It's crazy. I mean, I've said to a few politicians, if there was a single organisation in New Zealand that had 400,000 staff and employed all of these people, you would listen to that organisation. But because you've got 400,000 sole traders, you just ignore them. You go, oh, it's too much of a disparate group. We don't really know. Or you just assume that they're all Uber drivers. Whereas actually the role that we can play and have been playing is actually to say, well, why don't we take all the views of those 400,000 and let's represent those back to government and be that conduit. One of our customers the other day joked that we were the Ministry for Sole Traders, but
I was about to close this out and say, ladies and gentlemen, that's been James Fuller, the Minister for Sole Traders.
I'm happy to do that. It's like in true politician's fashion. I'm just here to represent my constituents.
Yeah, good man. Well, maybe we'll title it the Minister of Sole Traders, mate. Always good to sit down. I know that you and I could probably talk for hours.
Oh yeah.
But we probably better let you go and myself too. But mate, you're doing great work. I think you know that. I think you've just got your head so deep in it that you probably can't even see what you're building in terms of how much impact it's having. I've recently was talking to a young person who was getting out of their employment and they were looking to go into editing podcasts and doing all sorts. And I'm really shit scared about this tax thing. I'm like, you do not need to, mate. Follow this link and it will guide you. And amazing. They're like, whoa, that was easy. I'm like, stop worrying about that and get on with finding some more clients. So
Awesome.
You're helping drive the GDP, mate. And
I love it. Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah, good on you, mate. All right, we'll catch up again in 12 months or 18 months and we'll see how many other countries you've launched into.
I look forward to it. Cheers, mate.